Hello everybody and welcome to a special video of the Super Wild Card game between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. But before I actually talk about that, I want to let you all know that I haven't been doing any live streams of any of the games that I was going to do. For one thing, the Week 17 game between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals ended up getting canceled as a result of what happened to Damar Hamlin. Now, the good news is Damar Hamlin's okay, but it didn't end up being that way when it first happened. So the game ended up being canceled as a result of that. So I did not do a second half live stream as a result. And I didn't do a second half live stream of the Sunday Night Football game last week because I just decided not to. And I was going to do one of these sort of videos where I talk about the Buffalo Bills beating the New England Patriots. But unfortunately, I didn't do that. So as a result, I ended up doing a video on the Super Wild Card game between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, which may have not have happened if it wasn't for what happened to Damar Hamlin. Because what happened with the Chiefs ended up winning their remaining games and ended up taking the #1 seed as a result of the cancellation of the Buffalo Bills Cincinnati Bengals game. So Buffalo Bills ended up getting robbed of the #1 seed. And as a result, Buffalo Bills had to play an extra playoff game. Well, the Kansas City Chiefs ended up getting a break. So there you go. And that's the reason why the Buffalo Bills ended up getting the 2nd seed. But they did eliminate the New England Patriots. But of course, I'm here to talk about the Buffalo Bills against the Miami Dolphins. But I do want to let you all know that the Buffalo Bills beat the New England Patriots 35-23. And that was last week. And I'm sorry that I'm itching my nose. I apologize. But that's just because I haven't. I itch sometimes. And that's the way it goes. But now I'm going to talk about the Bills-Dolphins game. But of course, the Bills beat the Dolphins 34-31, but I really wasn't happy with it. Now I'm going to talk about the other games that happened. Surprisingly enough, I'm 5-0 in my picks. I picked the 49ers, I picked the Jaguars, I picked the Bills, I picked the Giants, and I picked the Bengals. And they all ended up winning. And I picked the Cowboys to win tomorrow. So, well, I shouldn't say tomorrow, I should say tonight, because the thing about it is I'm recording this after midnight. And they got to face the Buccaneers. So now I'm going to talk about the Bills-Dolphins game. I hate this itch, I apologize. So, the Bills of course won 34-31, which I was happy about. Now I'm going to move this over here for a minute. Now what I wasn't happy with was with the turnovers, because Buffalo Bills ended up turning over 3 times. 3 times. And that's just because a few of the players unfortunately did not help out Josh Allen one bit. But of course, one of them redeemed himself. I'll talk about that person in a minute. But of course, I got to talk about how these games were scored. Or this game was scored, excuse me. And I'm not playing the Bills shout theme because I wasn't too happy with how the Bills won today. Or how the Bills won, excuse me. But, of course, I'm going to talk about how the points were scored. Buffalo Bills, of course, scored 14 points in the first quarter, which made it 14-0. And then, of course, they scored again, which made it 17-0, thanks to a made field goal by Tyler Bass. But then, of course, the turnovers piled on. And this is where the Dolphins scored 17 unanswered points. 17 to tie the score before halftime. And that's because of the turnovers. And they ended up being as a result of interceptions. Now, the interceptions were not Josh Allen's fault. He ended up with 2 interceptions on the day. So if we check the stats for the game for Josh Allen, he had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But those 2 interceptions were not his fault. John Brown, of course, could have had the ball if he wouldn't have stopped running. He stopped running while the ball was in the air. And as a result, it ended up being an easy interception for Xavier Howard. And then, of course, the second interception was as a result of Cole Beasley not making the catch. Had he made the catch, that interception never would have happened. What happened was when he tried to get the ball, it actually put the ball up into the air, and it ended up getting. I'm trying to say it. I'm trying to think of how to say it, but Cole Beasley was trying to make the catch, and unfortunately, because he didn't, the ball popped up, and it ended up getting into the hands of a Miami defender. And as a result, the Miami Dolphins scored 17 unanswered points to tie the game. And 17 points was the most points given up by Buffalo in the first half alone. This tops the couple of games that Buffalo has allowed points in the first half, because Buffalo has at least allowed 14 points in the first half up to that point, and they ended up allowing 17 points. But Buffalo did end up getting a field goal to put them ahead 20-17 at halftime. But then, of course, this was Josh Allen's fault. Because once the Bills had the ball, Josh Allen fumbled it, and it ended up getting into the hands of a Miami defender, which led to it led to a touchdown. And it was an easy touchdown, and as a result, Miami took the lead 24-20. Because it was 20-17 at halftime. But then, of course, Buffalo Bills scored a couple of touchdowns, and that made it 34-24. But then, of course, in the fourth quarter, Miami scored a touchdown, which made it 34-31. And that would be the final score. And unfortunately, the Miami Dolphins, and coaching for that matter, couldn't try to get it into either field goal range or to try to get another touchdown. And there was quite a bit of times where the Bills shouldn't have called timeouts, and they did. And then, of course, Miami called timeouts, some of which were the right calls. And then, of course, when they didn't have a timeout, they ran the play clock to 0, which led to a delay of game. And because of the coaching of the Miami Dolphins, Miami couldn't take the lead or even tie it for that matter. So as a result, the Bills got the win 34-31. This really should have been a Bills loss because of the way they played. And surprisingly enough, this was the second time this season, this NFL season, that the Buffalo Bills has allowed 30 or more points in a game. The last time they allowed 30 or more points, it was against the Minnesota Vikings. And they ended up losing that game. This was their first win when the team has allowed 30 or more points. That is right. Buffalo got their first win, thank God, in a game where they allowed 30 or more points. So there you go. Now, of course, I did mention Cole Beasley. He did redeem himself by getting a touchdown that helped the Bills take the lead for good. So, thank God Cole Beasley came back and got a touchdown. He redeemed himself, which I was pretty happy with. I will say he shouldn't have. He should have caught that one particular pass, or he should have batted it down so that way it would be incomplete and not an interception. Because otherwise the Bills could have lost this game. They could have lost, but they ended up clawing and surviving. They survive and advance. Now, I did talk about Josh Allen, where I said that he allowed 2 interceptions, and of course I said that it wasn't his fault. Now, the interceptions that the quarterback for the Dolphins allowed, Skylar Thompson, he allowed 2 interceptions, and they were both his fault. They were both his fault. Those were bad passes, and as a result, he deserved those. Josh Allen didn't deserve a single interception. The only thing that he did deserve was the fumble that allowed the Miami Dolphins to take the lead for the first and only time. But of course, if it wasn't for those interceptions, I don't think there would have been a turnover by Allen through a fumble. But the good news is the Bills got the win, even though I felt they probably should have lost this game. But thanks to careless mistakes by the Miami Dolphins, that did not happen. But surprisingly enough, Miami's offense played well with the exception of the interceptions. Skylar Thompson did not play bad, but he wasn't flawless either. Josh Allen played pretty good. The only blemish was, of course, that fumble. The interception were not his fault at all, and his passer rating shouldn't have been as low as it was, but thanks to the interceptions that ended up being the case. But of course, he got 3 touchdowns, and he really shouldn't have had any interceptions. They just happened because of stupid mistakes that Bills players made, and that kind of cost Buffalo, and it almost cost them the game. But thankfully, it didn't. So, there you go. And surprisingly enough, the Vikings, who the Bills lost to, and it was the other game where the Bills gave up 30 or more points. And surprisingly enough, the Vikings had the longest win streak of winning close games, where Buffalo does have a win streak as a result of course, with them beating the Dolphins. The Vikings' win streak of winning close games came to an end today with the loss to the Giants, which was awesome. So, there you go. So now, it's time to talk about the next game, which could be the final home game for Buffalo. I don't know. It depends on if the Jaguars beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And if the Bills win and Kansas City loses, Bills will have another home game in the AFC Championship game. Otherwise, they'll have to play the Kansas City Chiefs at that neutral site in Atlanta. And it was already announced that it was going to be played at Atlanta, where the Atlanta Falcons play. The Buffalo Bills will finally get their chance to face the Cincinnati Bengals, since the game in Week 17 was canceled due to what happened to Damar Hamlin. Now, Damar Hamlin is not going to be playing in this game. And hopefully Dane Jackson's fine, because he came off injured. And hopefully, I hope that he plays against Cincinnati. I don't know. I know that Micah Hyde will not be playing. Surprisingly enough, he came back from IR, excuse me. But he won't be playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. If possible, he might be available for the AFC Championship game if the Bills beat the Cincinnati Bengals. This time it will be for real and there will be no cancellations. The Bills will be facing Cincinnati, and surprisingly enough, it's going to be different. It's not going to be in Cincinnati. It's going to be at Buffalo at Highmark Stadium. That is right. Buffalo will be playing at Highmark Stadium against the Cincinnati Bengals. That's the one thing about that one particular game. As a result, DeMar Hamlin, that Buffalo got back because of their win against the New England Patriots. They were able to be able to play at Highmark Stadium against the Cincinnati Bengals, which is a plus. I hope the Bills win. And of course, I will do one of these videos next time, because there will be no second half live stream or whatever not, because it's being played in the afternoon. And as a result of having a child, I won't be doing a live stream of any kind. So as a result, I'm going to be doing one of these type of videos next time as well. And I hope the Bills play better next time. But I will say that the Bills games versus Miami have been close. So that's probably why the Bills didn't blow out the Miami Dolphins like they could have. But of course, a win's a win. They survived, and they have advanced. The question is, will they beat Cincinnati? I thank you all for watching. Go Bills! And I'm sorry that I didn't do the Bills Shout video, or the Bills Shout song for this particular one. And that's because I didn't like how the Bills played today. They could have played a lot better. Alright, folks. Go Bills, go! Thank you all for watching. Peace out.